Hi, I'm Heidi Regan, a comedian and host of a film podcast that looks for hidden meanings in films.
So I'm here to answer the eternal question, did Friends...
I decided to take a deep dive, pun intended, into Shark Attack 2. As we know, Shark Attack 2 is the forgotten middle child of the Shark Attack series, immediately overshadowed by its showier younger brother Shark Attack 3. On first viewing, Shark Attack 2 seems a simple tale of revenge, filled with bad stock footage, plastic sharks, and poorly dubbed actors.
But you said I could!
But on the 19th viewing, I realised it's actually rich with symbolism and nods to Freud's personality theory of the ego, superego, and the id.
Are you guys getting a case of the pussies on me?
If you've somehow been too busy to watch Shark Attack 2 in the last month, a quick recap. When sisters Amy and Samantha Peterson are attacked by a great white, Amy dies while Samantha escapes after stabbing the shark in the eye, reminding us of the old saying on revenge, an eye for a sister. A greedy businessman demands that sexy marine doctor Nick capture the shark for his aquarium. The shark immediately kills an employee, escapes through a very flimsy gate, and goes on to kill 5 people at the local surf competition, which the mayor simply couldn't postpone. Nick and Samantha must team up with a documentary maker who's allegedly Australian.
Yeah, she's a beaut, all the way from Sydney Harbour.
To try to defeat the shark once and for all. But what is Shark Attack 2 really about? The film begins boldly, setting up its central premise that we are but specks of dust in an uncaring universe. A long helicopter shot over the ocean drags on and on and on until we feel overwhelmed by the immensity of this vast and ancient planet. When 2 sisters finally appear, the camera, viewing them from a godlike perspective, passes straight over them, as though God forgot they were even there, reinforcing their insignificance and by extension humanity's insignificance. The women investigate an old shipwreck. Is the director opening with ancient ruins to remind us that thousands of civilizations have come before us, thousands will come after, everything we do will be forgotten? Or did he do it because, as he says in his memoirs, which I've read, that he just found some stock footage of divers investigating a shipwreck and this was cheaper to use than filming something new? I guess we'll never truly know, but either way it's a wonderfully depressing opening. And we're only 2 minutes in. Samantha mimes that they should go further down and some stock footage of a shark growls as it passes the camera. Sharks don't growl, so I started to wonder, was the director trying to get our attention with these inconsistencies? The shark attacks and rudely kills Amy. Samantha weeps hysterically about her sister's death, even though it's been a few minutes now. It's boring, and I was about to fast forward, until I realised the director is sending us subtle messages. Her wetsuit reads reef, but backwards that spells fear. We now know 2 important things. Firstly, from now on, all Samantha's actions are going to be motivated by fear. Secondly, she's a terrible speller. So David Worth has now set up what Shark Attack 2 is really about. The ways humans face our greatest fears, our fear of death, and the fear that our lives hold no meaning in this vast cold universe. The shark is a direct reference to Moby Dick, where the whale, whose name escapes me right now, is a metaphor for a chaotic universe where death can strike at any moment. The captain wants to kill the whale to feel some control over this chaos, and Samantha has the same drive for revenge.
That thing murdered my sister!
She thinks she's hunting a shark, but she's just hunting a metaphor. It's very embarrassing. But how do others face death? Well, we now meet Nick. He's going to represent humanity's journey, so it's no surprise that our first view of him, he's looking out of what I think we can all agree is a womb-like hole. A man beckons him to leave the safety of the womb, like a tiny doctor. Nick's been born into the world right in front of us, and it's a water birth, so his mum's a hippie. The man birthing him is Michael Francisco, the owner of Waterworld. He loves money, he's dressed like death, all in black, and he enters Waterworld seen through a fish tank, through the water. Subtly implying that perhaps he is the real shark. He's there because the one-eyed shark has just eaten the toy boat of 2 boys. Fascinatingly, one of the boys has been dubbed with an adult woman's voice.
But you said I could!
But Francesco's only interested in the big fancy shark. He wants Nick to capture the shark / metaphor for death and chaos, and Nick objects. Nick says this is because great whites can't survive in captivity. But I couldn't help but wonder, was Nick running from something even greater than a great white? The answer came immediately in the next scene when Nick seeks help catching the shark from these 2 legends. Their boat is called the Wet Dream. It seemed like just a crude name to accompany their hedonistic lifestyle.
These girls are babes.
Until I realised this was a clue to the whole mystery of Nick and Samantha's real identity. Wet dream clearly refers to our dream state, the unconscious world. According to Google, Freud said that our personalities are divided into 3 parts. with two of these parts living primarily in our unconscious. The id is our childlike part that follows its base instincts. It's the Samantha. The superego is the nagging, moralistic part that believes in justice and doing what's right.
That thing murdered my sister.
It's the Charlotte, or in this case also the Samantha. And Nick is the ego / Miranda, the boring, rational part of the personality who's only interested in the practical, conscious world and doesn't like to dive down into the unconscious and face their fears or face their death unless they're forced to, preferably by an evil businessman.
I want that shark.
Now the average person watching this is probably thinking, how do we know this shark isn't just a shark? Are you reading too much into this? Well, even I started to have my doubts, until I went back to the badly dubbed boy.
You said I could have a turn.
To the untrained eye, this just looks like they had a problem with the sound and had to dub over it in post. But to the untrained eye that has a lot more time on its hands, I suddenly realised this scene is the whole film's meaning in microcosm. The children are fighting for control over a remote control boat. This film is about humans trying to feel some control over the chaos of life, where boats represent the journey from conscious to unconscious, the journey you need to take to become a fully developed person / carry. So the director has shown this by having the younger, less developed child not have control over the boat, or even control over his own voice.
But you said I could.
If that's too subtle, the director then has the symbol of chaos burst up from the unconscious and eat the boat. The shark is literally eating the young. Eating their childhood innocence, which will now sink to the bottom of the ocean along with humanity's forgotten childhood. It's simple once you see it. Nick captures the shark. The humans seem to have caged death, but the shark is clearly more stock footage, playing in front of them on a kind of TV screen. Their control is just an illusion, but still people flock to the aquarium, only to watch the shark immediately kill an employee. And I emphasise watch, as for some reason no one does anything for 35 seconds. They just tut sadly at the screen. I don't think it's too much of a reach to say that their inaction is a commentary on the way wars and pandemics played out on 24-hour news screens have removed us even further from death.
Close the gate!
Finally he acts, but too late, and the chaos escapes to wreak havoc on the wider world. The shark is clearly plastic in this shot, which I thought might be a metaphor about the more urgent danger of plastic in our oceans, but I think I'd had too many coffees. Nick tries to drown his sorrows while a bartender tells him a confusingly random story about how the mountain Devil's Peak got its name from a man having a smoking contest with the devil.
You've outsmoked the devil himself.
We now meet Roy. He's a documentary maker who's meant to be from Australia.
I got a call about hunting down a great white. Now that's exciting.
Another character with no control over their voice.
You said I could have a turn.
The id is governed entirely by impulse. Before every dive, he tosses a coin to see if he'll live. Where the superego tries to control the chaos of life, he embraces it. His arrival sends the superego and ego into a panic.
Sam, we're doing this my way.
It looks like your way isn't working.
And their fear, represented by the shark, takes on several forms within one scene, from fake fin, to stock footage of a smaller shark, to finally stock footage of a dolphin. This is the most confusing, until we see this is to show that the ego has become the shark and fear himself. The superego tries to take over, and the breakdown of their relationship is manifested metaphorically in the boat itself breaking down.
Fuck!
You might be thinking that this is the first work of art to use boats as a metaphor, but you'd be wrong. Artists have done this for years, most notably when Caspar David Friedrich used 5 boats to represent different stages of life, mirroring the ages of the people on shore, including 2 children playing,
But you said I could.
and an overturned boat to resemble a coffin. In Shark Attack 2, boats are used to represent the journey from conscious to unconscious, the loss of control. When the wet dream breaks down, they must be rescued by the id on his boat, which is called Down Under. It sounds like a cheap reference to him being Australian, but is it not a message from the id that they need to join him in the unconscious, i.e. down under? I think it bloody is. But the id is not to be trusted, as he has just killed a random shark and doesn't care it's the wrong one.
And if it's not the right shark?
Then I'll keep on catching them until I do find the right one.
With the boat broken down, they go on a very Freudian date up to Devil's Peak. The superego is still banging on about her sister.
Wish I could have said goodbye.
And from here they go back down to the water, where they send a camera down under beneath the waves to discover there are 6 great whites living in a cave together. This journey represents conscious to subconscious to unconscious, as well as superego to id. And it's clearly a nod to how Hitchcock structured the house in Psycho.
Ground floor is ego, In the cellar, it's the id.
They give another nod later when, after I presume some kind of power cut, Sam and Nick have sex, and they dunk down into the water, into the unconscious world of the primal id, who loves rootin'. They discover the sharks have been mutated by a scientist in Shark Attack 1 who experimented on them to try to cure cancer. It's got strong allusions to Frankenstein about a scientist trying to control death. Roy sees this information as...
Sounds like a load of scientific mumbo-jumbo to me.
And immediately pays the price for his ignorance.
We're gonna kill the sharks, but not on this dive. Not until I get enough footage to make the Discovery Channel wet their little panties.
Or the basket.
Hedge. Never lets me down.
An orgy of bloodshed ensues. Roy's men who lost the random coin toss reach out for help, mimicking Adam reaching out to God. But we already knew that Roy's crew is cursed by God. Get ready for this. When he unthinkingly killed the wrong shark, the director stood him in front of a ruined boat named Albatross. This sent me down a Google rabbit hole to find out that albatrosses are not only referenced in Moby Dick, but were made famous by Coleridge's poem,
The Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
In this poem, a mariner tells how he and his crew were visited by a great white albatross. However, the mariner unthinkingly shot the albatross, cursing the voyage, and they are left
all alone. Alone on the wide, wide sea.
And then they're visited by death and a woman whose locks were yellow as gold, who rolls a dice which ordains that the mariner will live but all his crew will die. What? Not only that, Coleridge's poem was heavily referenced in Frankenstein, a book about a man trying to control life and death versus the power of nature and the sublime. I've not got all the pieces yet, but it's all linked. Anyway, the pack, or herd of sharks, head for the beach. Nick realizes the horror that is coming in this homage to the Hitchcock zoom shot, made famous of course in 1997 by the film Event Horizon. The only certificates handed out at the surf competition are death certificates, thank you. The chaos is multiplying. Everyone's very sad. But in their lowest moment, they find the answer as the pieces of the personality start to meld together. The id has become judgmental like the superego.
You know, sharks are evil.
Right, and they deserve to die.
And Samantha is now wearing Nick's shirt. The superego has become the ego who'd become the dolphin Fenn, who was the shark. Even more melding occurs as he gives his coin to the superego. Now she can embrace chaos.
I was diving on a coral reef. Had a big cave underneath it.
And the ego unites them all by telling how a shark almost killed him in a cave but let him go for random, unknown reasons.
Jeez. The killing machine let me live.
Nick has finally accepted the chaos of life. He realizes the only thing you can hope to control in life is your own personality, and only if it's manifested itself into a comical Australian and a woman bent on revenge who you're also sleeping with. The id reveals a new boat, a submarine taken from Jacques Cousteau, which will take them down under into the shark cave, into their unconscious, to blow up the sharks. Unfortunately, the submarine plan is a terrible failure.
Get the cage into the water.
Sam must go back down into the unconscious with her id and ego. And growling sharks. The ego shoots the shark in the head and says,
This motherfucker!
Is this saying the shark is not only death but also a substitute father? A motherfucker? Who he must destroy to complete his Freudian growth? I'm not saying mothers can only have sex with dads, Meanwhile, the id, impulsive as always, sacrifices himself to lead the sharks into the cave and be blown up with them.
Follow me, you bastards.
What happened to Roy?
He died saving us.
Oh my God, Skipper.
It's truly tragic.
Hello?
Roy?
Roy?
Skipper!
For like 5 seconds, Roy's fine.
I found a small tunnel at the back of the cave. I dumped all my gear, and I squeezed my way out.
Roy Bishop went into a cave, died, and was reborn. This wasn't just about the id, ego, and superego. It was a grander tale riddled with Christian allegories. From Waterworld being created in the same number of days it took God to create the earth, to the seemingly dull story about a man winning a contest with the devil, which describes the devil as a man in black. Is Francisco the devil, telling Nick he can cage death? It's only after Nick has travelled up to Devil's Peak with his superego and begins to accept the overwhelming power of nature that he can then win. Is Nick Adam, eating from the tree of knowledge while the devil tempts him, before rejecting his father/God? Does Nick represent the entire history of humanity from birth to death? Is that why he's introduced as...
Where's Nick?
You mean Marine Boy?
And birthed in the water, obviously referring to the fact that human life began in the water? Or is Sam Eve? tempting her sister with the forbidden knowledge of the unconscious. If she doesn't represent the first man, then why is her name an anagram of 8 monsters? That can't be a coincidence. Or are the 2 boys Adam and Eve, about to leave the Garden of Eden and innocence? Someone must be Adam and Eve. If you look around the room and you can't see an Adam and Eve metaphor, then it's probably you. Or is Nick Jesus? Baptizing Samantha, almost dying in caves.
Jeez.
Or is Roy still Jesus?
Follow me, you bastards.
Oh my God, Skipper.
I'll be bigger than Cousteau ever was.
Bigger than JC. I rest my case. Wait, case reopened. Are the 3 of them the Holy Trinity? Ending the film melded together on the same boat. The superego wears his dolphin t-shirt, and he has become fear backwards. He has become her, she has become him. It's a filthy, sexy, hot mess. They sail off into the distance, mirroring the opening shot, but now they're on stormier water. Their journey mirrors the painting Warships in a Heavy Storm, painted by Ludolf Bacchus, and part of a series of Dutch paintings of boats enduring turbulent seas, but surviving because they've been built for them and they roll with the waves, reminding us that isn't that a bit like life? It can be chaotic and stormy, but we can face it if we roll with the chaos, and even more so if we can afford a boat. The journey from boy to man, id to ego, 8 monster to actress in a shark film is complete. Thank you for attending my art lecture. Actually, I just realised, maybe all the weird bits like the stock footage and the growling sharks were just signs that this was all a fantasy being played out in the last few seconds and dying mind of the shark. Samantha didn't just stab his eye, she killed him, and in his final moments he dreamt this entire story of revenge and redemption filled with amazing allegories. I can't believe that shark read Moby Dick. It's such a slog.